Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Back at SIHH in 2017, Audemars Piguet went big, jumbo in fact, with the Jumbo Royal Oak, the 15202, available in glorious yellow gold, a throwback to hallowed antiquity, the oldest, boldest, and most traditional of golds, looks spectacular on the jumbo case with a blue dial that is specific to the yellow cases, so it's different blue designed to complement the yellow perfectly. The watch is still 39 millimeters in diameter, and it is the closest Royal Oak in spec, tech, and size to the 1972 original as realized by Gerald Genta through Audemars Piguet. So this watch has always been something of a living fossil, as close as you can get to a factory-built continuation of the original 5402. It's 8.2 millimeters thick as I measure it, and it's massive in the hand. You really feel it. Lug-to-lug, just the case, it measures 48.7 millimeters. If you measure the intermediate link on each side, the plots, side to side, the total rigid distance across the wrist, it's a little bit bigger, 51.9 millimeters. And the shape and rigidity of the bracelet's one of the reasons why I always tell people with a Royal Oak, consider it to be a size or two larger than it really is. Think of this as a 41 millimeter round watch if you want to know how it's going to fit. Very comfortably, though, on my wrist. I'd say you could probably wear this on a wrist of 15 centimeters. My wrist is 16. I've got no issues whatsoever, and it will easily fit under a cuff. Again, the weight of this, though not a large watch or a thick watch, just the solidity of the bracelet, the amount of the metal invested makes it feel like a bank vault on your wrist. And hey, these are uncertain times. What better way to invest in gold than to wear it? The bracelet is a work of art, as are all the metal exterior components. This is a big part of why you buy a Royal Oak. Look at those polished ends to the interior faces of the plots, the intermediate links. Look at the expanding bevel across the lug hood that perfectly aligns down the shoulders of the links, the satin finish across the top, the vertical satin finish in profile, removable links fixed by screws. Why doesn't PodTech do that anymore? I do not know, but AP continues to do things the right way, including fixing the bracelet to the case with screws and bars will not come unstuck. Much better solution than spring bars. It takes about 9 to 11 hours to hand finish these bracelets, 3 times that for the ceramic ones. We have a double folding clasp. It is a sequential close. One side closes before the other. Twin trigger release, and it is quite robust internally. Feels more like a sports watch clasp than in the past, but you have to press both those triggers to pop it open. It will not happen inadvertently. Let's take a look at a few of the peace of mind angles when you're buying a used Royal Oak. Take a look at all 4 lug bevels. They want sharpness, definition, and symmetry. If you're looking for signs of minimal, if any, previous polishing, you want all of those bevels to be properly formed, symmetrical, and break sharply from the satin finish. The other thing you want to see, this is the other piece of mind shot with a used Royal Oak, look at those bolts in the bezel. They are all recessed below the plane of the bezel. That's how they're supposed to be. The bolts are white gold and they are bolts. That's how their slot can be perfectly aligned all the way around. There's a nut on the other side that actually provides the tension. The bezel has a little satin outer face, then the rounded polished edge, and then the vertical satination, the original Royal Oak bezel, inspired by a vintage diving helmet that Gerald Genta particularly enjoyed. You can see the push-down crown is also hexagonal to match the design of the bolts. 50-meter water resistance, but without a screw-down crown. I consider that splash and hand wash only. Don't take it swimming. The inner face of the bezel is polished, which I love because of the reflections and the light that it reflects back onto the dial. There are several different sizes of Audemars Piguet hobnail dial. This one is the Petite Tapisserie. It is the small hobnail. And if you get close, you can see just how complex this execution really is. There are tens of thousands of little dots, somewhere between 10 and 20,000. You can see that there are textures across the hobnails as well as in between them. All that is achieved by taking a big template and a pantograph, a 19th century mimicry engine, takes all the details, that big template, and then inscribes them onto the brass blank that becomes the dial, which is then blued. And once again, this is not the blue you get on a standard jumbo. I would describe it as a little bit brighter and more saturated. Yellow gold hands, numerals, and indices, which are solid golds. They will not tarnish or oxidize over time. We'll do a lume shot. Easy to read in the dark. Now, because this does still use the 2121 movement, if you wish to change the date, This is a vintage architecture, originally designed in 1967 by JLC for the Holy Trinity and only ever used by them. So one of the tricks JLC used to make this movement ultra thin back in the late 60s was to create a semi-quickset date mechanism that ratchets just like this between 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. and that is how you advance the date if you wish to do so. Taking a look at the back, you can actually see the movement. It's a great looking movement. By the way, this is a 3-piece case just to keep track. It is a 3-piece case and a J serial number for those of you who are connoisseurs of such things. This movement is beautiful, and the sheer amount of labor that went into making it and finishing it is the reason you don't see it anymore on the Jumbo. It is a gorgeous, ultra-thin. The base caliber without the date is 2.4 millimeters thick, and JLC's solution to make it ultra-thin included this beryllium ring that goes all the way around the movement. The mass of the rotor is on one side, but it is a ring. There are 4 ruby roller jewels that support this whole thing, so even under conditions of shock, the rotor won't hit the bridges and the mass won't hit the base plate. So that's what's going on there. The bevels are exceptional. These are not the kind of sharp machined bite mark bevels you see on mass-produced Audemars Piguet movements today. These are rounded and mirrored. You can see solarization on the crown wheel core, the ratchet wheel, some of the secondary wheels of the winding train. The rotor itself features a combination of beveling, satination, and polish, all of which are appreciated. And you'll note how the outer face of the rotor, or the mass, because this is the mass properly, you can see how it features a little hobnail design that echoes the dial of the watch. Every little bit counts. It's a unidirectional winder. It beats away at a quirky late 60s rate of 19,800 vibrations per hour, pivoting on 36 joules. It's got a 40-hour power reserve and one modification that AP makes because they've made this movement in-house for a long time. It has JLC origins, but AP makes it. You've got a Gyromax-style free-sprung balance for more precise adjustment, but then also for more shock resistance. And you can see that there are polished countersinks for all of the jewels as well as the screws. Screw heads are black polished with mirrored slots, or I should say, they have polished heads that are mirrored with beveled slots and circumference, and then there's engine turning on the base plate. Really great looking movement and a wonderful watch. And if you've got the panache to pull this off in a place like LA, the Riviera, Singapore, maybe Miami, this is the watch for you. Look no further. And remember, the sheer weight of the thing might be the most astounding feature. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.